Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you are about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. Today's video sees me continue last week's, where I took a look at, who I would cast as the Greek gods, both in general, but more specifically for a potential reboot of Charmed. And today I thought I would take a look at the, at the casting the more human characters of that, of that potential reboot, or more specifically, humans and heralds. Heralds in this case being the envoys of the gods, or the people that the gods entrust in order to do their bidding within the mortal world. By the way, in this, according to this, within this premise of the setting, the Charmed Ones themselves would be such heralds. Now, some of you might be questioning that and saying, "Wait, if they're heralds, why are they called the Charmed Ones?" Well, uh, admittedly, that's a pretty good question, but it is one that I've found an answer to. The easy answer would be to just roll with it and hope no one notices, which to be fair might end up being the case. However, in my case, I'm not. I don't just do things that simply that quickly. It's not just it's not just one and done. I want to think things through. And in this case in particular, I imagine that while the heralds collectively have their designations, designation as heralds, the heralds of individual gods would have their own separate titles. So, for example, the herald of Athena, or a herald of Athena, would be called enlightened, and a herald of Zeus would be called exalted, uh, etc. And the charmed ones would be heralds of Hecate. As I think I've already mentioned, they would be I see the charmed ones as being the heralds of the actual goddess of magic within uh, within Greek mythology. However, there is more to this series than just the gods and their machinations. There are plenty of human characters, and there is also quite a bit of uh, human drama to mine. And in this video, I'll be talking about who will play these characters who will mine this drama. The pictures are taken from a variety of from a variety of sources, either the Charmed Wiki, IMDb, or Wikipedia. All of these are either assumed to be are either assumed to be under how do I put it? CC Collective Commons, or they are used without any kind of commercial intent. So I do not claim ownership over any of the images that you are about to see. And now that I've gotten the legal stuff out of the way, it's time I delved into casting the actual, the more human characters of this series. Starting actually with the Charmed Ones themselves, and among the Charmed Ones themselves, I'm going to be starting with the eldest sister of the bunch. Note I am using Prue's picture as a but that more as a placeholder, because I don't really not but more as a placeholder, and that is precise. And the reason for that is because I've noticed while coming up with these characters that their archetypes map up quite clearly upon the archetypes of the original charmed ones. That is why I'm using that. So Prue will be the stand-in for the oldest sister within this reboot. And I do have to note that I will be talking about these characters based on their roles, not necessarily their names, because I haven't really figured out their names yet. And I still haven't figured out whether whether these charmed ones would necessarily be Greek themselves, given they're empowered by Greek deities. I I would like for that to be the case, but but it's not something but it's not something that necessarily has to be has to be enforced. Anyway, let's talk about the character now, who in the who in the uh, uh, when looking at the three classic female archetypes of maiden, mother, and crone, she would very much be the crone. Not because she is the oldest, or not just because she's the oldest, but because she would have a very specific understanding and perspective over the world as a whole. One that I think would most often lead to her clashing with her sisters, not just because it is different, but because it is so intrinsically ingrained upon her. She very much identifies herself with the fact, her, with her intellectual prowess, and with her capability of analyzing and of understanding the world, processing it through primarily through that medium of her mind. Also, I kind of see her as a communist, not of the Bolshevik variety, but rather a post-scarcity anarchist, someone who realizes that someone who recognizes that uh, a lot of things could be better within her society, or rather within the world as a whole. And she very clearly places the responsibility or the blame for why that is why that is not the case upon the people who have the most to benefit from the from the current status quo, which is basically what everyone else does. However, however, she actually has a more concrete goal as to how how improvements could be made. Nevertheless, her primary mode is still that intellectual lens, and her desire to and her own personal desire to make herself stand out within the crowd in that particular fashion. Though she would arguably still have a sensitive side and a sensitive, more emotional side, and it could be argued that a lot of her initiatives would actually stem from that side, because a lot of her intellect she does actually channel her intellect towards towards making society a better place, to the extent that her understanding allows her to conceptualize that better place. But it is not something that she is forth with, so to speak. That is something you need to dig through in order to in order to understand the character. So this means that I really have to cast someone who is ideally from the between the late 20s to mid 30s, and has that, and who can effectively project that allure of a complexity of knowing more than she reveals, and of being deeply involved, of really caring, but without necessarily directly showing it, because she does still guard her emotions, because even though it could be argued that they drive her, she she has other things that she prioritizes within her everyday life. And I think the actress who could most effectively embody that contrast is Willa Holland. Yeah, I first met her as Thea Queen on Arrow, and within that role, she it could be argued that she started out as somewhat of a spoiled younger sister who finds herself in the spotlight, with her estranged brother's return. But even beyond that, she has showed that the show has proven that there is a lot more. There is a lot more about her, and that she has her own. She has her own means. She has her own interests, her own story, so to speak, and a lot of her own distinctive characterization and the things that she is and things that she wants to bring forth. And I think Willa is therefore perfectly capable of showcasing this character as as an involved and as an involved and somewhat intellectual figure within this configuration of the cast. So for that reason, Willa Holland gets cast as the oldest sister. Moving on to the middle sister, who is again unnamed, but once again is represented by Piper Halliwell, who was the middle sister on Charmed, and her personality is actually very similar to the middle sister of my reboot, in the sense that she is the one who is most attuned with traditional femininity, the desire to have a family, to run a household, so to speak. So she definitely has the most tradwife energy of the trio. But tradwife not in the not in the fashy right wing, in the sense of the fashy 50s aesthetics kind of tradwife, but more like a deeper cottage core tradwife, someone who has that someone who actually places a lot of effort into making and maintaining her in maintaining her household and what is it that looks like. Politically, she would be a non-reactionary conservative, trying her best to she responds to things in a very mild mannered way. She might have her reactions to certain things, but if they pass and work, she is very happy to she's very happy to accept them. She is the kind of she is a very much a kind of character who uh, who doesn't give any shit but doesn't take any shit either. And more particularly in within this show, I imagine her being a realtor, someone who very much takes care of homes and presentations, and wants them to make and in that sense wants to replicate and produce the an ideal home life for as many people as possible. And I imagine that her position actually as someone who administers homes in a in a private manner would or within a private enterprise would lead to her clashing a lot with her sister, who sees housing more as something to be decommodified. But that's me going into a little bit too much commie discussion territory, which is likely to become part of the show, but it is not something I will go too deeply within the scope of this video. The point is, she is very much she very much follows a modern classic understanding of womanhood that has been shaped from roughly the early 70s to uh, uh, 9/11, or up until the 2008 financial crisis, the working mom. And and when it comes to who would play this character, I think the actress who would be most who would most fit that archetype would be Catherine Langford. Yeah, the actress who first became famous through 13 Reasons Why, and and became a and managed to uh, fully breathe life into a character who became known after her after her death. There is plenty of I think there are plenty of parallels between that character and the middle sister that I'm trying to put together, in the sense that she has this emotional investment that really matters, that really matters to her, and that really matters to her, and through which she translates a lot of the endeavors that occur around her. And for that reason, I think Catherine Langford is is a very fitting is very fitting for this role. Moving on, we reach the youngest sister, who once again it will be, and for her and representing her, I once again have Phoebe, one of the Charmed ones, as a stand-in. Though to be honest, Phoebe would not necessarily be the most effective mirror of this character. I would argue Buffy Summers actually fits her somewhat better. Why do I say that? Because I think she would be in a somewhat similar position as a professional athlete, be that either in gymnastics, parkour, or some kind of martial art, and something that would or anything else around that nature. So, um, however, when the show begins, she is basically recuperating from a major injury, and given her age and the point of and the point of over the course of her life where she currently is, um, where I see her being somewhere between early to late 20s. She now starts wondering whether whether having to contend with injuries such as the one that she is recuperating from, which could be argued to almost sideline her, if that is really something she wants to deal with for the rest of her life. And yeah, and yeah, from her personality, I imagine she would be very bubbly, very involved, very very tomboy-esque, very eager to get into into the down and dirty, but also maybe still have that reluctance when it comes to when it comes to her profession, and whether that is in fact actually and whether that is in fact actually her goal, and how she negotiates that future anxiety, even though she generally tries to run away from it, or tries to tries to keep herself otherwise occupied so she doesn't dwell on it. And I think the actress who would best be suited to represent that is Chloe Grace Moretz. Admittedly, I might just be leaning a little bit too much into Chloe's child actress persona, given that she was Hit Girl, and I've noticed a lot of her later roles aren't really as active. But still, I think she has. I think she would be able to leverage her her persona as an attractive and involving figure in such a way as to represent potentially her own personal demons, and channel them through this through this pathway, through this through this particular character archetype, and the direction in which in which she would find herself growing. So for that reason, I'm gonna pick Chloe Grace Moretz to play the youngest sister. Moving on, we have the mother of these of these leads. Unlike within the original show, the mother would actually be alive, and I think she would have more children than just these three sisters. In fact, in my in my take on this on this new show, she would actually have 6 children, 4 boys, 2 girls. It would be very no, four, two, the other way around, four girls, two boys. It would be very tempting to have to have both the charmed ones and their siblings be free of each in such a way as to mirror the first generation of Olympians, as in Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Demeter, Hestia, and Hades. However, um, however, I don't think there's the symbology of these characters really effectively maps out on the Olympians. So on the Olympians, and so instead, this is what I'm gonna go, and it also gives me a spare sister just in case another falling out occurs and occurs backstage, and one of the sisters would have to be killed off. There could be another one that can move into that role, or she could just be there. But that's enough for talking about the kids. What about the mother herself? Well, I see her as being one of those women that, according to Lana Del Rey, feminism has left behind. Um, really, I think she would potentially not appear to be any kind of feminist icon, but she would very much be. But I do see her very much respecting feminism, and I see this character more or less being in dialogue with traditional as well as new gender roles, or even potentially reactionary ones as well, or the reactionary redefinition of gender roles, because from the exterior it very much looks like that she follows the traditional and expected uh, pathway that would be expected of her, or that she would take, or that a woman within a more traditional society would follow. But that is something that she recognizes works for her. So her brand of feminism is very much personalized. That in the sense that she wants in the sense that when she interacts with society, she wants that interaction to occur in a supportive role, and she actually expects that of all women, regardless of what it is that they choose. And as such, she would show plenty of support, plenty of potentially even admiration towards her daughters. And I imagine that could cause some level of conflict between her and her husband as well, because while he would have his his moments of greatness, his baseline would still be being somewhat of a dick. And she would have her moments where she is quite shady, but still but her baseline is still being still being being caring and liberated, even though she is in a, even though she is in a more traditionally limited position. Uh, uh, and it could be argued that she is the actual head of the household, in the sense that she always finds a way to not necessarily circumvent the wishes of her husband, but that she fulfills them in a way that he didn't expect, and maybe even has a lot of her own initiatives that she wants to bring forth. And uh, how exactly these occur, how exactly these manifest, is something that I'll leave up to um, up to a potential reboot to in order to fully discuss. Until then, however, I've said a lot about this character, but and that really leaves an interesting an interesting profile in terms of who exactly would play her, because she has to be able to showcase that level, a level of comfort within her role, and a level of confidence that that I think is surprisingly hard to actually manage, and make her come across as self-assured without her coming across as arrogant. And uh, I'm struggling with my words here, so excuse me just a little. This is all off the cuff. Uh, and I want someone who has that potential to empower, but also uh, to empower others and be and come across as apparently quiet, but has plenty of hidden strength that makes people not underestimate her despite her apparently meek role. And I think with all of that in mind, the best actress for this role is Charisma Carpenter. Yeah. In case you're wondering, I did in fact check, and the age gap between Charisma and the, and the actresses who would be playing her character's daughters, is on very thin margins, so to speak. I'm stretching believability just a little bit, but otherwise, I think she is. I think she befits that role, or that role befits her very effectively. Um, looking at her role in that other show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, as well as how she carried that character over in Angel, and how that ended up growing. I very much stand by that idea that she knows how to play confidence both in its most arrogant and in its most and in its most charismatic, pun totally intended form. And I'm not really going to argue about how effectively she is. She represents her feminine charms, because that is something that anyone who's seen her uh, would be aware of. But also I think I think she would have a great command of the more management or organizational tasks that would be that this kind of role would require. Like, you look at her, and even though she would be in this treadwife role, I think she still has that ability to project that level of confidence and authority, even there, and enough to let you know that if you bring bullshit, she will respond with sass, and that she is not to be trifled with. So for that reason, I place charisma. I want to cast charisma as the mother within the show. Um, Moving on, the next role will be the Daryl analog. Um, because yeah, I do want the charmed ones to have someone assisting them as they go about their roles, or as they try to effectively carry out the missions that their patron god assigns them. Unlike Daryl, however, I imagine this character being, not being a police officer, but rather being someone who is on the wrong side of the law, but for good reasons. So someone like say a hacktivist, or or a character who is otherwise disruptive in his actions, but for good reasons. And I imagine the situation could function on a reciprocal basis, with with the charmed ones also doing things to assist him. I don't rule out him potentially also being a herald, so that that they don't have to, so that they aren't stuck with trying to maintain their secrecy towards him. While that kind of dynamic is perhaps interesting in and of itself, I think it's a little bit overplayed, and it is and would be more interesting to have him to have this dynamic to have their dynamic be out in the open. And their dynamic be out in the open, and also because of the various tasks that Charmed Ones could be expected to carry out. I see this character potentially being the herald of Hephaestus, aka and therefore not simply be a hacker, but also somewhat of a craftsman, somewhat of a technical creator, someone who can someone who can help them figure out a whole someone who can help them figure out how exactly the problem of the week, monster of the week, whatever have you, is capable of carrying out whatever it is that they have to deal with uh, throughout the episode. I potentially see this character being autistic as well, or somewhat on the spectrum, because and therefore him potentially cherishing his relationship with the Charmed Ones more than them, playing around with that idea of their chemistry and their tension. And I think the actor who would be most suited for that role would be Atticus Schaefer. Um, yeah, Atticus is I think most well known for playing another character who is very heavily hinted but never confirmed at being on the spectrum, namely Brick Heck. But this is not just a Brick copy or an adult version of Brick. This is very much a different character with different inclinations, different interests, and yeah, and I think that would also allow him a little bit of it. And also I think this character would allow him to stretch his artistic muscles a little bit through the interactions that he has with the various sisters, and and how they particularly respond not just to him um, but to his endeavors. Also, given that Atticus is disabled on account of having brittle bone disease, I imagine his character could also be disabled, and it would make for a very interesting, and I think it would make for a very good on-screen rep, so to speak. Anyway, moving on, we reach yes, the Harrison Wells of this series. For those of you who are unaware, Harrison Wells is a character who shows up in the CW Flash series. I think he's based on a character. He's based on a character from the comics, but in but in a lot of ways, he's very much a creation of the Flash show. A character who is actually an amalgamation of a variety of different characters, or rather a character who is in some way in touch with the various versions of him from a variety of parallel universes. And these characters and these alternate universe versions within the Flash show would often interact as well as swap places with each other. And to that end, you'd never really know when this character shows up, you never really know what to expect from him. And to that same end, I actually imagined this character would show up within this show and very much be the wild card, someone you can never predict, and who could cause a variety of things to happen at any given point in time for whatever reason. And in order to amplify that more wildcard aspect of him, I imagine him potentially also being the herald of a variety of different gods, not in the sense that he is simultaneously representing all of them, but in the sense that he switches around a lot. or that he gets thrown out a lot and taken in by other figures. And therefore, whenever he shows up, not only are you unaware of whether he will work with you or against you, you are also unaware of how exactly he can help or hinder you. And that, I think that would add a lot of that'll add a lot of spice, a lot of variety, a lot of potential drama, and plenty of potential for varied action scenes within this, within the show. And I think the actor who is most capable of imparting the gravitas and attention that a character like this would deserve is Gildart Jackson, the guy who played Gideon in the in the original Charm series. I do actually admit that I created this character specifically for this actor because, well, let's just say I very much respect the not just the original role but also the performance, and I would very much want to see that performance brought within my own brought within my own iteration. So and I think it is within a role such as this one that he would be able to showcase uh, plenty of variety within his acting, and stand out as an eye-catching figure throughout the throughout the run of the show. Very much serving as that intriguing, dangerous wild card that that would always keep both the leads and the audience on their guard. So for that reason, I'm picking Gildart Jackson as unnamed wildcard character. Moving on, we have a stock photo of a librarian. More specifically, this character is the character who this picture stands in for is meant to be the chief archivist at the university that the oldest sister gets her PhD. Because yeah, that's another thing I should have mentioned. My interpretation of the show is that it would begin when this when the oldest sister gets her PhD, and within that first episode she would end up working within the university archives, and her boss would be this archivist character, someone who becomes a confidant and sounding board to her when she is somewhat disappointed in her interactions with her sister, someone she can rely on to comfort her outside of her familial environment. The other sisters would also have, could potentially also have such characters and confidants, either in their work or in their either in work lives or their love lives. But I've chosen to talk about the oldest sisters, oldest sisters support, because I actually see want to give her a role within the because I actually have a good understanding of what her initial role within this series would be, in the sense that she would function somewhat as a dark mentor. Think about it in the same way Ra's al Ghul functioned in Batman Begins, or as Dr. Han functioned within the first two seasons of The Good Doctor. Someone who is able to pick up on the strengths and the internal turmoil of the respective character and of the respective lead, and amplify them in such ways to turn them towards their towards their own benefit. And yeah, this character is going to have an ulterior motive, and it will lead to as the season goes on, to the sisters, or particularly the uh, oldest, clashing with the clashing among the sibling trio. And in order to play her, I choose Lucy Lawless. Some of you might recall that I also cast Lucy Lawless in my previous videos where I cast the gods. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, this casting choice is in fact entirely, completely deliberate. Because I very much see that kind of character being, having that initiative when it comes to what it is that she wants to pull off over the course of this over the course of the season, and I think this is a good way for her to stand out and become a memorable and intriguing villain throughout the course of at least the first season. And it is somewhat unusual for that character to be to take on a villainous role. It will very much help set this series not just as an adaptation of Greek mythology, but also as but also within the larger scope of Charmed. And last but not least, we're talking about Hecate, the goddess. The titular trio is the are the heralds of. I could have cast her. I could have mentioned my casting choice within the within the previous video where she for the Greek gods. However, I decided against that because by nature of being their quasi mentor, so to speak, Hecate would show up a little bit more frequently, and therefore have a more active role within the series. So it makes sense to cast her separately compared to the rest of her brethren. And I have to say that when it comes to casting her, Hecate is kind of a very weird decision, because there are lots of things you can do. As you can see in this statue here, she is actually often depicted as having three faces, and in fact the Netflix Sandman adaptation very much leans into that by having her played by three different actresses. That is not necessarily something I want to do. I'm rather considering having her played by be played by one actress, but her appearance would constantly change between between her current face, her younger appearance of her, and an older appearance of her, and she would move between all of these appearances, seemingly at random. When it comes to Hecate herself, the thing about her that is to note is that she doesn't really have her place within any of the within any of the established domains of the Greek pantheon. She's not an Olympian. She's not a chthonic deity. She's not really a nature deity either. She moves in between all of these domains. She is often called the goddess of the crossroads, aside from being the goddess of magic. The moon, the night, arguably the darkness, arguably even the light itself are considered her domains. She's also to some extent a protector of the home. So there is a lot to her. There is a lot of complexity that she represents. So so in that sense, so in that sense, both through the changes in her appearance and through the vast malleability of her domain, you really need an actress who can move between all of the archetypes that she uh, uh, between all of the archetypes that she represents, as well as someone who can accurately portray the particular type of gravitas that would be necessary in order to convince in order to uh, not necessarily convince the leads, but also stick the landing when it comes to imparting her godliness, her her sense of her sense of power and a sense of respect that she is due, and that she is due throughout the show. And there are a few actresses who could who can project that kind of aura, but for my money, the actress who I think has the best odds of doing so is Karen Cleesh. Cleesh is very much the queen of the turn of the millennium action adventure show, the kind which was the kind which Charmed was arguably either inspired by or mm, Charmed was either inspired by or later went on to inspire. There was the there's the Musketeers show. There was Mutant X. There is a third example I'm currently blanking out on right now. And the point is, she has done quite a lot, and I think she is very deserving of this kind of this kind of tribute. Someone who can make someone who can meaningfully and believably showcase herself as a strong and inspiring female figure, one that one that is to be followed, is to be respected by the audience. If for any reason Cliche is not available, I'm now considering Juliet Landau as an alternative. But that's neither here nor there. For now, all I can say is that that was my video, and I would like to thank you for your attention. If you've enjoyed what it is that you've seen, well then please like the video, maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If there is anything you'd like to add, either to the concept of the Charmed reboot or any of my casting choices, that is what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. I also have a main channel where you can hear me talking about the print medium and selected works therein, so if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and check it out in the description down below. Right past my social media links, which I also suggest you check out should you choose to. If that is not of interest to you, then I suggest you stay on this channel where, aside from the occasional casting video, I do a whole bunch of other stuff related to movies and TV. Reviews, retrospectives, other kinds of pitches, etc. I also occasionally do commentary and gameplay, so there could be something in it for you if you decide to check it out. If nothing I've said so far attracts your interest, then I suggest you go ahead and do whatever you want the rest of your day, because it is your day after all. And yeah, that was it from me. So until next time, I have been the One Take Man.